You know when you have a Navy SEAL that you're going to be in the right hands. So please join me in welcoming to St. Louis, Jonathan Gilliam.
Very interesting. I filled in for Sebastian Gork on his radio show on Monday. I think he was suffering from laryngitis. He was really sick. And then when he asked me on Tuesday if I would do this, I was like, heck yeah, I'll do it. I'm excited to see that this is even being spoken about around the country. Tuesday night, I got sick. So he got me. So I'm here, but let me tell you something. Having been a SEAL, I learned, I also went to Ranger School. I learned that when things are at their worst, that's where real warriors are at their best. I was in the airport shuttle van to the airport coming here when I got off the plane, and I just sat there quietly listening to everybody talk. I'm sure you guys were there, here somewhere. And it was very inspiring because these women and men are warriors. You all are warriors. You know, in media and in politics, not many people have real experience. Some people do, the present company does, but many people that are in Washington, D.C., especially on the left, they don't have a lot of experience. Media is the same way. And that is not by mistake. That is by design. You don't go to a doctor who's never been trained in medicine. You know, you're not going to get your brain operated on by somebody who's worked in a gas station their whole life. But AOC was a bartender who graduated college, and that's it. Yet she has all these incredible ideas about how to rule the world and how globally we should be. Well, that's a scam, folks, and I know you know this. It was interesting because I was going to come up here and you know, kind of talk about socialism and all these things, but I'm pretty sure the majority of people in here are spot on with what we're talking about. I will give you this. Again, I'm from Arkansas originally, so I speak in very general terms, all right? I'm not like Gorka. I'm not an academic. When I hosted, so I host for Sean Hannity, Gorka, David Webb, Andrew Wilkow, the guys on Patriot Channel. And I always like to give this analogy of capitalism, socialism, and communism. How many of you have been to a buffet before? All right, probably everybody. You go into that buffet, you spend your money, but that buffet doesn't get your business unless they cook good food, unless their prices are reasonable, and the ambiance is nice, right? That's capitalism. They do what they can to get your business because they're free to succeed or fail on their own terms. But you're also free to work, get your money, and then go purchase that food and relax and get a big belly, which you always do. Why do we eat so much when we go to these buffets? It's ridiculous. But that's capitalism, all right? That's what this country was founded upon. Not necessarily capitalism, but the free market, that you're free. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more in just a second. Socialism is where the government kind of takes over the business, kind of. Right? It's a Jedi mind trick. We aren't necessarily going to take completely over the business, but we're going to set regulations so high, we're going to tax it so high that nobody really makes a whole lot of money. And by the way, they're free to make whatever they want as long as they follow the regulations that the government tells them. You are free to go there and eat whatever you want, but you can only go there the certain times that the government says you can go there. And you're going to eat broccoli. I don't care what you want, you're going to eat broccoli if that's what they want you to eat, right? So it's a lie. You think you're free to go in there. You pay all these taxes, and you think that, okay, the food's cheaper, which typically that doesn't work out either, right? Socialism is a lie. True socialism, that's the beginnings of socialism. True socialism marches straight over into communism very quickly. Communism, the buffet of communism, is that they will serve food the government owns everything. They'll serve you food when they get ready. There may or may not be food on the buffet. You don't really have a choice when you eat or what you eat, and the people cooking it are being told what they'll put out there. And if you say anything about it, well, you're going to go behind the buffet line and never come back. right? Now, that's a very simplistic term or story, but that's the facts. I have a dear friend of mine, Drago. He grew up in Poland. His mom was part of the Freedom Underground in Poland. And when he got older, he started functioning in that parameter as well. He owned a typewriter, and they used to put out a freedom letter. Drago, at one night in the 80s, they shut all the phones off in the country. They were already a socialist country, but there were these people who were, making complaints about the buffet. So at midnight, they shut all the phones off, and they proceeded to arrest somewhere between 20 and 60,000 people. All these people, and they took them to re-education camps. That's exactly how I feel right now. They took them to re-education camps. Drago, who's a warrior like you all, wasn't going to stand for that. So he sat in prison for 2.5, 3 years, somewhere around there, until Pope John Paul came through Poland and did a deal to get him and others released. And as soon as he could come to the United States, and it took him a while, it took him several years to get to the United States, he came here and he lived for about 6 years till he could become a citizen legally. He came on a true asylum. That is true asylum. Poverty isn't asylum, right? A form of government that arrests your rights, that's asylum. So he comes over here, and he waited, and the day he became an American citizen, he went and enlisted in the United States Navy. He became a SEAL and functioned for over 20 years as a Navy SEAL. The guy's an amazing American. So I stay in contact with him all the time, and the stories he has, I interviewed him. If you want to, I have a podcast called The Experts. You can go listen to his story. It's amazing. His story will make your jaw drop because everything that was going on there is happening here. And it's happening very similarly where people don't realize what's happening. They do not see what is occurring. And so one of the main things that happened there that's happening here is the sexualization of the country and primarily the youth, the indoctrination in the education sector. And it is shocking how well that works to change a country. We all know that if you want to defeat the United States, many people have said this, you're not going to attack the U.S. with arms and guns and men. If you want to take down this country, you do it from the inside. And these people have a long-term plan. So I was thinking when I was on the plane today coming here, it was unbelievable. I said a prayer before I left my house. I said, Lord, please just help me get there. I got 2 50-pound boxes of books that I got to carry. There was no traffic. Anybody from New York knows that that's a rarity. No traffic. We got to Newark Airport in 20 minutes from Manhattan. That never happens. We got there. There was no line. I checked in my luggage. Both bags weighed just under 50 pounds, so I didn't have to pay any more for them. TSA was like that. I'm like, this is a little bit too good. This is a little nerve-wracking, We get down there, perfect timing. I could eat some soup, relax for a minute. The plane came. It was a little plane. I had my own row/window seat because it's such a small plane. I was able to take a nap on the plane because there was no turbulence. Smooth. And then I woke up and I started thinking, it really doesn't matter how smooth the ride is or how short the lines were or how fast I got to the airport. If we crash on the landing, it's just as bad as any other flight, right? So that's the reality of where we are now. I'm writing a book about leadership. And in this book, what I've discovered as I've done over 20 years of research, just the same with the book that I have here that I'll tell you about in a minute, all my experiences in leadership in the government has by and large, more or less, been a visual learning experience of failure of leadership over and over, careerism, all these things that are a byproduct of the way this country has been subverted. Now, I listened to Yuri Bezmenov. Amazing story this guy has. He defected in the 80s from Russia, and he was head of propaganda in India for Russia. He came over, and he started teaching courses about, and if you can go on YouTube, he's passed away now, but you can listen to this. Everything he said is exactly what's happening. It's subversion. How did the Russians and the communists, and if you think that the Russians went away the way they were, Putin used to be in the KGB. He used to wear a uniform. Now he wears a suit. That's the only difference in that guy. So that's the reality of who we're facing. It's not who the Democrats and Hillary Clinton and all those people say, the Russians this, the Russians that. I've got my own theories on that. I really actually believe they're the ones with the relationship with the Russians. But these people are underhanded. In the 40s, they were secreting people into the United States. Well, even before that, but in droves over here to try to undermine this country and the freedom that we have. Why is it so effective? And it's been shown that it works for thousands of years. Subversion, that is. Well, it's because there's a cycle of life, and in this leadership book, this is what I'm writing about. People will, in communities, they, by and large, at one point or another, will be oppressed. They will have no freedom. It happens over and over and over through history. Those people eventually, if they get tired of being oppressed, if it's not a religious state typically, they will rise up. Somebody will finally get tired of it, and they'll rise up and they'll fight for their freedom. It may take 100 years, but they'll eventually get it. Once they get it, this is where it actually gets dangerous. Once the freedom kicks in, the cancer of comfort starts to dwindle in. And as people get comfortable, they stop fighting for freedom. They stop understanding the importance of being a warrior for that freedom. And so they end up saying, no, you go fight for us. Or we'll hire this person to go run Washington, D.C., and we'll let them worry about it. And they don't get up and go do anything. What happened in Virginia last 2 weeks ago was probably the first time in my life where I saw 20,000 constitutionalists get up and actually go stand in the right place together at the right time. And I do believe, yes, I do believe that if they didn't want Ralph Northam to go back to work, they could have stayed there, and he wouldn't have gone back to work. But the people don't realize that they have that power. The left, again, like I said at the beginning, is a fake power. They are grandstanders. They are illusionists. They make people think because they're loud that they are powerful, but they're not powerful. They live in the same country under the same laws that we do. And we have given over to them the ability to stand toe-to-toe because of the nonsense, and majority of it comes from this sexual deviation that is being taught to children. I know teachers all around the country. One of the most interesting shows I ever did on the radio, I interviewed my girlfriend, Tracy Belmonte, and we're discussing the indoctrination of children in the education sector. And I, for the next 2 hours, took phone calls from teachers all over the country. And it was amazing. All of them were afraid. All of them suffered the same persecution. All of them were beside themselves in what they should do. And I think what I want to leave you all with today, because I don't know how much time I got left. 5 minutes, okay. 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 So what I want you all to concentrate on is that you're not only warriors, but there's multiple front lines inside the United States right now. Social media is a front line. These corrupt politicians that sit in their castles, that's a front line. The PTA is a front line. There's many different battles, but you have to look at things strategically. And that's where the United States always makes the mistakes. They don't look at the big picture. When we're in war, you know, in 1947, we created the Secretary of Defense and the Department of Defense. You know what it was before that? The Secretary of War and the Department of War. You know who was probably in charge of changing that? Probably the leftists. Because we've never won a war since then. We fought amazing battles. Men have given their lives. Women have given their lives. But we really haven't crushed an enemy since then. I'm speaking to you all as fellow warriors, potentially can make the same mistake if you don't look at the strategic picture. The war on terror, for instance, to my knowledge, never in my time in the SEAL teams as an air marshal flying undercover in the FBI in New York City working on the JTTF, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, never did I hear any leaders call our enemies in the war on terror fundamental Islam. How are you going to win a war against an enemy if you won't name them? So you have to be willing to name your enemy first and foremost. You have to be willing to identify them. And you will find that once you start doing that and you stand together and you develop the big picture, you can outmaneuver them. It doesn't take, it doesn't take appearances on Fox News to be a spokesperson in the fight for freedom. Don't make that mistake. You can go and eat at a diner and plant seeds in people, and they will go out and do amazing things for this country. This group right here, I don't know, we have maybe 300 people here, right? You could, in a perfect world, I'm sure we have teachers in here. How many teachers we have in here, right? And you all live in fear, I'm sure. You all, 300 people here, could give $100 to a fund each that would, if any of you got fired for reasons of persecution from the left, that you all would pay for their rent, pay for their attorneys, and go to a publisher and get them a book deal. You literally could, this room right here could do that. That's how you battle them. $100 seems like a lot of money, but in the long grand scheme of things, we're going to be eating in a restaurant where we're told what we should eat, or not given any food at all, just like that buffet that I was talking about. So $100 now goes a long ways. $100 in the future, if we go that direction, it's not going to go anywhere. Now, I saw a GIF. That's one of these pictures that kind of repeats over and over again. And I put it on my website or on my Facebook page. And it's a real actual video of a man and a woman walking down the sidewalk. I don't know where this was, but I guess a big truck lost its tire, and it came bouncing clear across the road and smacked this guy right in the head as he walks down, knocked him right out. He didn't die, but it looked like it killed him, but he didn't die. But I put on there, half jokingly, but actually very serious, that God works in mysterious ways. And sometimes he uses a tire, and he's very specific. So you need to realize that you are here because you were specifically chosen. You see the things that other people do not. And I want you to think about this. In Genesis, there's two huge things that happened in Genesis in the Bible. One was that Satan never ate of the apple. He knew what was going to happen if Adam and Eve ate of that apple. He probably maybe didn't realize he was going to get kicked out with them, but maybe he did. But ultimately, he knew that if they ate of the apple, they would surely die, but they would also know good and evil. And God said, we cannot let them eat of the tree of life, otherwise they will live forever knowing good and evil like us. So he kicked them out of the Garden of Eden, along with Satan. I think that was purposeful on Satan's part, because forever from that point forward, he did not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, so he's not going to die. But he's going to use the human being from that point forward for thousands of years as his own supercomputer, gaining knowledge, trying to understand where God is, how to create life. Look at science, DNA, space exploration. We spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on those two things alone. Now, the other thing that happened in Genesis was the Tower of Babel. And I think this is where God was already warning us about socialism and communism. That tower, those people were trying to reach heaven. They were trying to reach God. And God got furious, and he tore the tower down, and he made them all speak different languages and sent them off to different corners of the earth. What is our biggest threat right now? We call it globalism. It's really socialism. It's socialism on a global scale. They want to get rid of borders. They want everybody to speak the same language. They want people to be able to travel to and from anywhere. Who would want that? Because as soon as you give over all the people to one master, the ultimate master will appear, right? And it's not going to be, most of the people in this country and around the world, if Satan appeared right now, they would think he's God because of what he can do, the things that he can do, and the way his beauty that he was born with or created with. So, as warriors, here's the strategic plan that you all must encompass, and you must follow this plan. You must identify the enemy. Socialism and communism are of the devil. They are ungodly. Wherever you see those things appear in a country, you know that Satan is getting a hold on that, and the people that work for him and function for him are ungodly people. You know that. Name that. Don't be afraid to name that enemy. Secondly, when you look at the tactics that he carries out, history shows us they're already there. Name the enemy, know their tactics. It's not that difficult. And stand against him together. I think God was so pleased with what happened in Virginia. What bothered me, though, about Virginia is that people will go stand for the Second Amendment, which I believe is very, very important. It's more important than any other right, because without the Second Amendment, you don't have a bodyguard for the First. But why didn't they do that when they said that they wanted to take babies, set them to the side, and then let them die if they decided to? That's really when we should have all been going to Virginia. Amen. But we don't do that. Why? Because you've been told you can't. It won't work. You'll go to jail. It's not true, folks. That's an illusion. That's that same illusion I talked about earlier with socialism and the AOCs and all these people. It's a lie. You, together, are more powerful than anything Satan can ever throw at this planet or this country. You have been made free for a reason. And I'm just going to close with this. Freedom is so important because it allows us, it's just like God's relationship with us. He wants you to be free to choose him. Without freedom, you're being made to choose a certain thing, right? If you are in a country where there's no freedom, you have no choice. It's called conscription, whether or not you fight in a military. In the United States, we volunteer. When it comes to being a free people, we were chosen and put here for a reason, because God wants and saw what the potential was for this country. Slavery is practically gone in the world. Women have equal rights. Well, the equal opportunity. That's really more important than equal rights. We've always had equal rights under God. But without the Constitution, those rights would not have been afforded to you. So my task for you, once again, is to name the enemy and name him often. Confront the people or sit and talk with others and tell them the truth. The name of the enemy, the tactics that they use. And then lastly, don't be afraid. You need to stand together, because in numbers, and I'm sure that you can tell that about Congress, when you try to put something forward in numbers, it's much more effective than if you try to have a good idea. Good ideas die every day. Now, this book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, I wrote this. What it does is it teaches you how to look at your life from the attacker's point of view. Divide your life into sectors, and then look at each sector separately so that you can understand what the threats are there, what your critical areas, critical times, vulnerabilities, and avenues of approach. You literally can predict every attack that could happen to you in your life with this book, with the knowledge that's in here. But what I'm teaching you right now is the same tactic. It's not rocket science. Bad people are not geniuses. And socialists and these people who try to oversex our culture are not geniuses. They just have a playbook and we don't. Right? So now you have a playbook. You have a point to start. And that's it. I think that's it. God bless all of you.